everybody. Welcome to this next episode of Talking Heartland. This is a show where we're going back and watching the show Heartland, and we're finishing up season 5 today. And I'm film critic Rachel Wagner, and Michelle is here.
Hey everyone.
So we're basically a third of the way through the show. Very exciting.
Oh, it's a huge
Are,
accomplishment.
are you, yeah, are you proud of us? I'm proud of us.
Totally.
Yeah. So we're talking episodes 16, 17, and 18 from season 5. And these episodes are a whole lot of Tim drama.
Yeah,
You kind of have
again.
to, yes, I think you have to be kind of invested in Tim drama for
Yeah.
these episodes.
Felt like it was more kind of sympathetic in these ones than the previous episodes we covered.
It starts out with wild horses, and it's Amy and Ty join Scott on a trip back to his old reservation to save a herd of wild horses from the dangerous EHV1 virus. While there, Scott must deal with some unfinished business from his past. Meanwhile, Mallory's plans for the perfect Sweet 16 party are interrupted by some life changing news and Tim's tumultuous custody battle for Shane, and recent breakup with Janice sent him down a dark and familiar path. So overall, what do you think of this episode?
I really liked this episode. And it made me sort of frustrated that they don't use Scott enough.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is such a good episode, mainly because of Scott. And it just makes me wish they used them more.
Yeah, that's true. He is an interesting character. He's sometimes a frustrating character
Uh,
uh, because he's such a I don't know. He there's so much more he could have, but
yeah.
he just lacks courage. He's kind of a
Uh,
so he can be kind of a frustrating character in that way. But um, you have April is brought back in because she had been on episode before, right?
I thought she was the episode where the plane crash, but I'm not 100% sure.
On our IMDb, it's the only one listed, but I was thinking we'd seen her once before. But anyway,
Yeah, I can kind of.
she is a friend of Scott's, and the thing I was a little bit confused by is 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 the idea of when they were talking about cutting horses. Was that the same as like are these horses the same as like Mustangs or is that different
I think
versus
it's bit. I
Mustangs?
think it's similar. Yeah, I think it's sort of similar. They're like I guess it's just like a different breed of wild horse. But they do say that these horses are, there's nothing legal about these horses. Like there's no sort of protection or ownership. They're just wild horses that can cause problems for a situation like this.
But these are on his land, but they're still wild horses. Like what do they do with these horses? Like what good are they
I
as
think the
far
horses,
as
the horses just sort of. I think they're just wild horses. They're just native horses to the land. Is it morally right to remove these horses that have been here for like centuries? Like they've just been here for generations.
so they want to
Yeah,
get rid of the horses because they might have this virus. It
yeah, they
might
might be.
spread into their domesticated horses,
I
the
think
wild
says he has
horses.
like expensive sort of cutting horses. And he wants to like Don. He wants to protect those horses.
Pretty much everything that I've learned about horses has been from Heartland. So
Yeah, yeah, pretty
um,
much.
but they're gonna kill these wild horses, but
Yeah, they're gonna kill
April
them.
wants to try to get them to stop, and of course Amy is on that team, but Scott doesn't want to help. Then you have uh, Mallory planning the party, and Austin says, "Well, it's because it's the last party before your parents are gonna split. That's why they're letting you have this big party." And
Yeah,
so
he's the worst.
Austin continues to be the worst. Yeah.
He's awful.
Yes. And I
Yeah,
I wish that Mallory had been allowed to have her party. That would have been fun. But
yeah.
the
I
way
did
they were
like
at,
that she sort of. Lou
Fun.
and Jack that they aren't invited, even though
Right.
she's having the party at Heartland.
Mallory's parents have been gone a lot, and so that's frustrating. And it almost felt like, is this? I looked it up to see if this was the end of Mallory, because these 3 episodes almost felt like she was leaving the
hmm
show or something. But no, there's more for her.
Yeah, I had to look ahead as well, because I think next season we're getting a character that's sort of, I think Georgie starts next season, which is a character that's still in the show in season 15.
Mm.
So, but yeah, I had a look just to see if Mallory was still around next season, and hopefully she sort of continues to be.
Yeah, according to IMDb at least. Jake isn't going to come to the party. He's being kind of a butt in this episode.
Yeah,
And
yeah, it's sort of frustrating in these episodes.
yeah, and so I guess with Tim, I didn't realize that. I mean, I guess it makes sense that he has had a sobriety.
hmm
I mean, I feel like we've seen him like drink alcohol like casually. Maybe not. I guess maybe not. But I feel like we've seen him have a
Yeah,
beer.
I was sort of confused about that as well. So I'm sure we've seen him in a bar situation before. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, I guess I wasn't like 100%. Um, I didn't know what his sobriety situation was, whether it was just sort of pharmaceuticals or, if it was just he was, because people have their own, you know, sobriety, journeys, whether that's, staying away from the thing that they find addictive, or if it's staying away from absolutely everything that is sort of altering in any sort of way. And I guess his is just staying off of everything, which I didn't realize.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't either. And he's leaving all these angry messages on Miranda's phone, and he's just in a very bad place.
Yeah, yeah. This is why I sort of I was a little. I felt bad for him these episodes, even though I'm not a fan of him really at all. But I think when you bring addiction into sort of anything, we've all sort of witnessed addiction in some form, sadly. And so when I sort of see it on TV, it is very hard for me to
Yeah.
dislike a character just based on that, because it's such an awful thing for anyone to go through.
Yeah, that's why I felt like this more in the next episode. He's kind of taunting Caleb, and then Caleb punches him in the face.
Go Caleb.
Yeah, that was a good moment there. And you have this character named Dawn who is upset with Scott. He hates the horses, and he fires a shot
Mhm.
to upset the horses, and of course they're angry at him because Amy's out there and other things,
Yeah,
and yeah, that was
yeah, they've captured sort of they've got a hold of one of the babies, one of the foals. But yeah, it's pretty scary being out there and someone firing shots, regardless if it's straight up into the air or not. Doesn't really matter.
yeah. So did we know that Scott had grown up at Heartland basically?
Yeah, yeah, we knew that.
Yes,
It
okay.
was just not really explained, I don't think, until now, like why he ended up there. But I guess it's sort of explained that he's, was with April when he was a teenager. Um, and then he went off the rails, and that's when Marion sort of stepped in and took him to Heartland. And I guess he just never went back after that.
Yeah, he was raised by his grandfather, and
hmm
then went to Heartland when he got into trouble.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Well, I think we've had scenes where uh, Scott and Ty have sort of talked about, Scott's talked about him being in a similar situation to Ty.
yeah, they talk about the cutting horses competitions, and I was like, "What is that? What does
They
that
have
mean?"
competitions for everything in this show.
Yeah.
Every skill there is for a horse, there's a competition involved in somehow.
So Mallory is moving to Nashville. she's very upset, as you would be.
Yeah.
And it seems like it's a shame that she couldn't just stay at Heartland, since that seems to be basically how she's grown up.
Yeah, it's sort of frustrating that Mallory's sort of a main character in this show and our parents are not.
Mm-hmm.
So we sort of sit back and sort of judge them quite harshly because they do just leave her a lot. That is sort of the perspective that we get.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, it just
Yeah.
doesn't seem very fair.
Yeah, I mean, they're basically taken away from her home.
Yeah, yeah, and it's
But
sort of the home that they've placed her in while they've been away. So yeah, it's not really fair.
yeah. So then Mallory breaks up with Austin, and
Finally,
where because he's like, it wouldn't be too bad moving to Nashville, and she's horrified by that, and she says, "You think that Nashville's more exciting than me?" Bye, Austin.
yeah, finally,
Uh-huh. So then you have the uh, you have the scene with Jack and Tim. He says, "You keep digging, Tim. The hole keeps getting deeper." And yeah, that's very true.
yeah,
That kind of addictive behavior is really rough, very
yeah.
difficult,
Mhm.
very difficult to beat.
Yeah,
And
sort of makes sense that Jack's the one to sort of see all of the signs. Because he
right,
was sort of I guess Lou was a little bit older, but she was still a kid. But Jack was sort of saw it all firsthand.
yeah. And I thought it was very sweet at the end of this episode with Jack and baby Katie. That
Hmm.
was very sweet. It says the man gets used to the noise.
Yeah,
And that was very sweet.
yeah. Everyone's moving out.
Right. And then you have Jake bringing Mallory a cupcake so she gets something for her birthday.
Yeah, that's sweet.
Yeah, that was sweet. And a nice moment for both those characters. And then April and Scott have a kiss to end the episode. And I don't know if we're going to see any more of that. Well, evidently by our IMDb is their only episode, so I guess they
Yeah,
uh, kiss for old time's sake.
I guess so. Yeah.
So overall, what would you give this episode 1 to 10?
I gave it a 7.5.
Yeah, I think that's fair. We'd like to take a second from this episode of the podcast to celebrate our sponsor of this episode, and that is the Hallmarkies Patreon.
Do you love Hallmarkies Podcast?
Do you want an inside scoop into what happens on the podcast?
Do you want early access to episodes and loads of cool perks?
Now is the time to become a patron of Hallmarkies Podcast.
By becoming a patron, you get to access our patron Facebook group.
You can request episodes or even be a guest on the podcast.
And most importantly, any patron can join our monthly movie watch-alongs with stars like Paul Campbell, Natalie Hall, and more.
It's as low as $2 a month to join in and become a special part of the Hallmarkies family.
Please consider, and we will love you forever.
Go to patreon.com/Hallmarkies.
That's patreon.com/Hallmarkies.
Next, we have True Calling. This is when Amy's dog Lobo is injured by a trigger-happy rancher. It's up to Ty to save his life. Meanwhile, Mallory hatches a wild plan to avoid the move to Nashville, and Jack convinces Miranda to return to Heartland to deal with Tim's increasingly erratic behavior. So, what did you think overall of this episode?
An emotional roller coaster. You know, I'm a dog person.
Yeah.
So I was a wreck watching this. Like last weekend, I watched that movie on Disney Plus, Togo, and I
Oh,
sobbed
yeah.
all the way through it, like uncontrollably. So yeah, anytime there's a dog in peril, that's just like
Yeah.
my kryptonite.
But Togo, that was a good movie.
Yeah, it was a really good
Yeah.
movie. I could never watch was Balto.
Balto, I know.
So
It
bad.
ruined Balto.
Oh, 100%.
Balto's a throne of lies.
It's so mad. It was like Wikipedia in it, like crazy. It's like, oh, so on
Yeah, but when they're crossing the ice lake, whatever, that was really good.
Yeah, it was
I,
very, very good.
I was invested. It's funny because I'm not that much of a dog person. It takes me a while to get kind of used to them, and then I like them. But I didn't grow up with animals, so I have a little bit of an awkwardness that takes me a while to get used to them. And but I do love dog movies.
Yeah, me too.
Like Old Yeller. Oh, I will
Yeah, I
cry.
literally like I'm googling like dog movies just now because I want to name my new dog over like after one of my favorite like dogs
Oh yeah,
films. So I'm like trying to find a good name.
yeah, it's true. That's why I could never name my child Molly. Like, not that there aren't amazingly people named Molly, but my good friend had a dog named Molly. I could never name.
Yeah, well, the dog, my new dog that I'm hopefully getting, like the name that they've given him in the shelter is Archie. And my friend was like, "Oh, like Meghan and Harry's child," and I was like, "For God's sake, that's just ruined it."
Yeah. So Ty is working with Scott, continues to work with Scott, and then also at the vet clinic that he uh snuck into a couple of episodes ago. He's working
Mhm,
there as well.
mhm,
And he is, learning a lot, but he's also applying for vet school. He's a little bit insecure about that.
mhm.
And he doesn't know whether he should, submit his application. And so that is kind of this plot is him kind of dealing with that. And then when the dog gets shot, which is horrible,
Mhm.
um, there's nobody there to help. And so he ends up performing the surgery. And that was pretty well done. And again, it felt believable.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, it was really
they
well
they
done.
yeah, they do a great job on
I
this
had a
show
look
with
at
that.
sort of the dog that they use in this show, and I guess he's still sort of pops up, like throughout the show, but I think they sort of realised having a husky, during the summer in Alberta wasn't the best. Like he apparently he was not doing well with the weather, and so they just sort of use him really sparingly. But
Oh,
he's a
that's
beautiful
interesting.
dog. Yeah, it's a beautiful dog.
It's a big dog.
Yeah, yeah. But
And
this
so
this episode was really good in terms of like because Ty is just so like insecure.
yeah.
Um, and I guess until he came to Heartland, he didn't have a lot of people believing in him. And I like the way the show sort of uses action as a way to sort of build his confidence.
So the neighbor thought it was a wolf. Is that why that's why he shot the
Yeah, I guess
dog?
that's the assumption that, you know, doesn't really look like a wolf to me, but yeah, I guess they
Hmm.
thought he was a wolf.
Yeah, that's weird. And we have Tim, and uh, he's getting back to the old ways.
Hmm.
Jack tells Miranda, "We both know the old Tim, and no amount of lawyers will protect him from a broken down." That was talking about Shane. No amount of lawyers will protect him from a broken down dad. Yeah, that's very true. I mean, he does get. I mean, Chris Potter does a good job playing
Yeah, yeah,
this
yeah.
kind of
That's why
broken.
we have such a response to him because he has done a good job.
Hmm. That's true because it's so tough. I mean, I've had two of my cousins pass away from addiction,
Yeah,
and it's so hard to beat it. It's so tough.
yeah, yeah. It's sort of all throughout my family as well, and it's just so difficult, and it's hard to sort of not say things or when people are very judgmental, and it's like until you sort of experience it
Yeah.
within your family or with someone close, you can never possibly understand the power of addiction. And I guess that sort of was a frustrating thing in these episodes because I don't think Tim would have this turnaround without getting some kind of professional help.
Right. That's what I agree. I mean, especially in the next episode, once Miranda's I Miranda's back, then it kind of goes away, and that's just not that's not realistic for most.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
especially for people that are as strong and addicts as Tim is, it doesn't just go away.
yeah. I mean, you could absolutely have the intent to stop, but without sort of some sort of added support,
Hmm.
um, it's just not very realistic.
Yeah, I agree. That's what I felt too. And then you have Lou selling all old stuff on eBay and kind of going through everything. They're gonna move into the Hanley place, and when she finds out that her father's drinking again, I thought that was compelling, and I
Yeah,
thought they
yeah,
did a good job with that.
yeah. I thought, yeah, it was really good because we haven't seen that sort of emotional side of Lou for a while. It
Yeah,
has just been very family focused on her and Peter and Katie. So yeah, it was nice to get that side of Michelle Monaghan again.
yeah, and I thought that was probably the more realistic part is her just disappointment and frustration,
Hmm.
because the hardest part is finding that balance between support and not, but then not enabling the behavior. I think
Yeah,
that's what's tricky.
yeah, and I suppose she's got a whole different perspective now that she's a mother.
Hmm. Yeah. And so then Miranda comes and talks to Tim, and she tells him that Shane is acting up, that she's tired of the fighting, that she's tired of fighting with Tim, tired of fighting with Shane,
Hmm.
and the see if they can work together. We find out that Shane went to riding camp, and he just says, "I just want a chance to be his father." I mean, if anything, his behavior is making it less likely that Miranda's going to want to have him in Shane's life
Yeah, I mean the
at this
behavior
point.
in these episodes, especially like the phone calls. I mean that just ends his custody battle and its tracks. Like there's no way that he
Yeah.
wins any sort of custody after that. Um, so yeah, I think it was sort of big of Miranda to sort of say like let's figure something out together because she absolutely could just go to court and you know keep him away permanently
Hmm.
after the phone calls and the abuse that he sort of streams into the phone.
Yeah. Well, Tim ends up throwing the alcohol out at the end, which again is nice in theory, but would
Hmm.
probably not be enough.
No.
Yeah. And we have Mallory has the scheme that she's going to take her father's guitar, vintage guitar. She's going to sell it, and then she's going to get her own apartment in Hudson so she doesn't have to move. But the person she sells the guitar to, uh, it ends up being a bounce check. So her plan does not go well.
No.
And the scene between Mallory and Jack, I thought was really good.
Oh yeah, that was really, really good. Yeah, this episode was really good in terms of like emotionally destroying me. Any kind of scene with
Yeah,
Mallory and Jack is good. But yeah, they're so good
yeah.
together, those actors.
And when I interviewed Jessica Emily, she said that was her favorite, was any scene working with Jack.
Yeah, it really shows.
Yeah, you felt for it. That's rough to have to move. So moving in general is just the worst. I hate it
Yeah.
so much.
Yeah, I've been really lucky. I've sort of lived in the same town my whole life.
Uh-huh.
I've been very fortunate.
Yeah. I mean, but at a certain degree, like a move is a move, even if it's in the same town. It's just the worst. I hate it so much.
Yeah, I've done a couple of moves in my life, but yeah, Yeah,
Yeah,
awful.
I never want to move again.
Yeah,
I've been
there's a
in,
reason it's like one of the I think it's like one of the top 5 most stressful things that
yeah,
you can go through.
it's yeah. I mean, the only good thing about it is you do get to de-junk and get rid of tons of stuff, but it still sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh,
I can
I
never
mean,
understand people that like move it once a year or something.
oh, I couldn't. I mean, my aunt and uncle are in the foreign service, and so they only stay, I think, 2 years
Hmm.
everywhere they're assigned.
Yeah.
And that would be so hard, I think.
Yeah, I've got an uncle that like he used to work in schools where we sort of like the guess he took care of the land in like posh schools or whatever. And obviously the house wasn't theirs and they just sort of had to move from school to school. Just sounded like a nightmare.
Woo. Yeah, not for me, that's for sure. But uh, so then Mallory confesses to her dad about the guitar, and that was was sweet. But then Jake gets back the the guitar, and he has a black eye. And she says, "This is the sweetest thing that anyone has ever done for me." It's very was very sweet,
Yeah.
very very sweet. Poor Jake. Um, and uh, Miranda decides to stay a little bit longer, and then we get Mallory saying goodbye to Jack, and that was very, very well done. Very good.
Yeah, that was so good.
Yeah.
And I like that sort of Mally tries to kiss Jake and then he kind of says no, like he wants to do it properly and he believes that she'll be back, which according to IMDb she will be. So
Yeah. But it might have been cute to have like a little kiss.
yeah, it might have been, yeah. Especially
Like
at the
in,
end of the season.
yeah, like in general, I prefer these really young relationships to be more on like the innocent side. Like sometimes I feel like on shows and in movies they have these adult relationships for teenagers, which just doesn't feel very realistic to me. Like,
Yeah,
I hardly knew anybody that had that kind of relationship in high school.
yeah.
Uh, but
Yeah, this is one of sort of the rare shows that yeah, they actually use young actors as teenagers.
right,
It's more sort of palatable when you're watching a show about teenagers and they're all like
right.
20,
I know
25,
that
pushing
was
30 sometimes.
yeah, that was so funny because they had the trailer for Dear Evan Hansen,
Oh my
and
God, don't get
all
me
these
started.
all these people were like, "Oh, he looks so old." I'm like, "Really? He looks fine to me." But but yeah, I mean, I'm like, this is not like this is new. It's not like the first 27-year-old they've ever hired to play high school student.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, all the time.
seriously,
Yeah.
so annoying.
So then we see Ty sends in his applications. So that's the end of the episode. Yeah, this is a pretty good episode. It was kind of except it was kind of sad, but that's fine. But the Tim stuff wasn't the best, wasn't my favorite, but I still overall liked it. What would you give it?
I would give it an 8.
Yeah, I agree. That's what I would give too. All right. The next episode is called Candles in the Wind, and this is the finale for season 5. And it's when a mystery horse arrives at Heartland. Amy and Ty are sent down a path that will alter their lives. Meanwhile, Tim and Miranda realize they have to take their son's wishes into consideration, so they decide to spend some quality time together with surprising results. Peter drives Luke crazy when he takes over the plans for their second anniversary celebration, but she is almost speechless when he reveals his surprise. So, overall, what do you think of this episode?
Yeah, I like this episode. Obviously the Tim, Shane, and Miranda stuff I found really frustrating.
Yeah,
But yeah, there was a lot of like character growth in these episodes, or this episode in particular, particular with Amy and Jack, and just little moments here and there that I really liked. And I do like that they don't tend to go for these like especially this early in the show, they don't tend to go for these massive, like, dramatic cliffhanger type finales. You know, they leave a couple of things up in the air, but it's not like super dramatic.
Yeah, it's true. I kind of wanted Ty to propose instead of leaving it with Amy finding the ring. I was kind of like, oh, it would have been. I think it would have been cool if
Yeah.
they had ended it with a proposal, but obviously I mean, we're going into season 15 pretty soon, so they need to stretch this out as
Yeah.
long as possible. So it starts out with Shane hitchhiking and leaving his babysitter that's been seeing it, and uh, so he manages to find his way to Heartland, and they're very frustrated, obviously, about that. And Miranda gets very upset, and I can understand why, but also I feel like Shane has shown himself to be responsible,
Yeah.
and
And especially when it's all about him and they've sort of left him out of the equation. It's not
right.
really fair. I can understand why he would be, really frustrated and want to be there.
Yeah, well, and I feel like he needs to be a little more of a free range kid,
Hmm.
given a because some kids need that independence,
Yeah.
but obviously tough for Miranda to when he's her, sort of only responsibility and only thing to lean on.
Yeah.
Probably harder to get that long leash, but everything's changing at Heartland, and Amy gets the horse from Reynard, and the thing I guess I think would have made this more interesting. I actually kind of wish that it didn't come so easily to Amy. Like, it just seems unrealistic that anything to do with horses, Amy is like amazing.
Hmm.
And I think that it would be interesting to see her struggle a little bit with a little more with
Yeah.
at least one or two aspects.
Yeah.
But she's
Um,
incredible at this.
yeah. I do like that they stretched this out for like an entire season. Like it's not
Hmm.
like, when she did sort of the Ring of Fire thing where she just sort of picked it up right away, and was able to sort of, do
Yeah,
all of the things that she does under such, a tight, timeline of, things that would normally take her weeks. She's had to do in like a couple hours, and she was able to do that. Whereas this was something that, this was introduced in the first episode of the season. And I guess she's just been practicing really, really hard. But
yeah,
yeah, it was sort of interesting that, this new horse shows up and she's able to sort of, without any sort of practice, get this
yeah.
horse to kind of do whatever she wanted.
Yeah,
You know,
and
can
even to the point where Spartan's getting jealous.
yeah.
This horse, he wants in on the fun. That was funny to me. So there's Zephyr and Spartan
Hmm.
in this episode, and so Shane tells Miranda, says, "You're making all these decisions without me. It's not fair." And
Yeah.
so they decide they're going to try to get rid of the lawyers, try to listen to what Shane wants, and that is definitely the best way to go.
Hmm.
Not that Shane should be making all the decisions, but he's a teenager at this point. It's not like he's a little child,
Yeah.
and I think there's a difference there.
Yeah. I guess due to his sort of lifestyle of moving around a lot, he's, had to grow up really fast as well. So
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing if like a child's like in kindergarten or something, yeah, then they can't obviously make the choices, but a teenager, basically a mini adult, so.
yeah.
Um, and so Lou starts to kind of tease Jack to say, "You are a coward," and he's really missing Lisa, and Lisa's in Paris. This was a cute storyline. I liked this a lot.
Yeah, this was really good. And I like that it was sort of left to Jack to sort of take that step.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't him sort of being forced out of his comfort zone. He just sort of, came to this decision on his own.
Hmm. And then you have Ty asking Jack for Amy's hand. That was very, very sweet.
Yeah, it was very sweet. I'm just very confused about. I guess just after like the Ashley and Caleb storyline, like Amy and Ty are now around the same age of, yeah, I guess Amy and Ashley are sort of the same age.
Uh-huh.
Um, after sort of witnessing that whole thing, it is
Yeah,
interesting that Ty has come to this decision. You know,
true.
you would think that witnessing that firsthand, like Caleb is his best friend, you would think that would sort of influence. It sort of felt like it came out of nowhere a little bit.
But then again, Caleb is still very pro marriage, so maybe that helps.
Hmm.
I don't know. But yeah, it's true. Well, and he obviously has his things about it that he's nervous about.
Hmm.
And Peter and Lou are celebrating the anniversary, and Lou doesn't like being kept out of the loop with this. And that's definitely very like me. It, I've never really had a surprise party, but I think I would prefer to know and be involved because to me, part of the fun of entertaining is that like planning
Hmm.
process, and making everything look nice and having the food, like that's part of the fun to me. So I would prefer to not be surprised in general in life. I don't really like surprises.
Yeah, I'm sort of the same. I'm not a big fan of like the whole planning thing, but even if I was just sort of like told this is what's going to happen, this is what we're going to have, just so you're
Yeah.
prepared, that would be fine with me. But yeah, like
Mm,
completely unknown, yeah, that was really stressed me out.
right. Yeah. And the stuff with the Renard horses, that's called Liberty work, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. And basically the drinking problems seem to have gone away in this episode. They're not really talking about it, which isn't very realistic, as we say.
yeah,
And then Tim and Miranda kiss, and that was very cringeworthy. I did not like that.
yeah. They don't have the best chemistry in the world, do they?
Mhm.
I think it would have been nice if they'd had sort of an episode, like just a line of like, him saying he was going to like a meeting, or if he was talking to someone,
Mhm.
just like something so that it made, you know,
Yeah. Even
because you
if
would
he
think they would.
said, like, had a person, "This is my sponsor," or something like that, it would
Hmm.
have been good.
Yeah.
I agree. And so Amy is auditioning to be in this dark horse troupe
Hmm.
kind of thing. She does her audition, and that was pretty impressive. They did a good job with that.
Yeah.
And I think Amber Marshall is at her best dealing with the horses.
Hmm.
Those were She's very impressive. I mean, I
Yeah.
know there's stunt doubles and stuff, but she does a lot. You can see her in the frame and everything.
Hmm. Yeah, you have to have a certain amount of confidence around animals to, you know, really,
Hmm.
do that kind of stuff.
But she decides to not go with Renard and to stay and work on Heartland. So she's starting to figure out kind of what her calling is.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, I thought
that's
this was interesting. I guess it would sort of be a similar storyline to Ring of Fire, where she sort of leaves on a tour.
mhm,
So I guess yeah, it's
right.
interesting that they decided to just not do that again.
Yeah. And so then Jack's going to Paris, and that was so cute. I loved that. It was adorable.
Yeah, it was so cute. All
Mhm.
dressed up.
Yeah.
They go to the airport and sit in a plane for hours. I'm like, that's not going to be comfortable. Put on your comfy
Yeah.
clothes.
And so then Peter has lit up one of the Dude Ranch cabins for this special night for Lou, and that was very sweet.
Hmm.
And then they light the lanterns and make a wish lantern.
Yeah.
Nice. and then Ty's going to propose, but then Amy's all like saying all the stuff about how we need to go slow in our relationship and everything. So then he doesn't.
Yeah,
But
she sort of says like we shouldn't tie each other down, sort of.
right, which makes sense because he's about to go away to school.
Uh-huh.
So, but then she finds the ring, and so that's sort of your cliffhanger for the
Mhm.
season. So what would you give this episode 1 to 10?
I gave it an 8.5.
Yeah, I think that's fair. That's fair. So there we go. That's the end. We did it. We finished season 5.
Yay!
Yeah. So the plan for next week, because I'm going to be out of town, is so hopefully Amy will be back, and it'll be Amy and Michelle. But we'll see. We may not have an episode next week. But hopefully we will be able to make that work. But we'll keep you posted. But Michelle, where can people find you?
On Twitter at Michelle R. Benson.
Great. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all of our social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. Please check that out and make sure you're following the podcast to Hallmarkies Pod and Hallmarkies Podcast, all of our social media. And if you're listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. And if you are listening on YouTube, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. We just got past 3K, which is very, very exciting. So thank you on the YouTube. And check out our Patreon group. We have tons of fun. Definitely worth your investment there. And then also we have our merch store, which has some Heartland inspired merch. Check that out as well. We really appreciate it. So thanks so much, Michelle. I appreciate it. And we'll talk, if not next, we'll talk in 2 weeks. That'll be great.
Yeah.
Bye, everyone.
Everyone.